If you need some coins for the Trophy Titans promo, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're very fast, they're very cheap, they're very reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a nice 5% discount. So what's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. If at any point I seem a little bit off during the video, it's because I'm quite literally going delirious at the moment. I've been awake for currently 31 hours without sleep. I've not been too well and I've had some very strict deadlines to meet. And yeah, it's just been a little bit stressful, so I haven't really had the time to make content and play FIFA that much. But the games that I have been playing, I've been currently using the 4-1-2-1-2 formation, which is one of the best aggressive formations in the game. And yeah, just before we get into today's video, guys, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up, as that does really help me out with the YouTube search algorithm. Also, subscribe to the channel if you are new, so you never miss out on any videos like this one. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside, guys, let's get right into today's video. Okay guys, so starting off with the custom tactics for the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow. For the defensive style, as always, I'm still using this on balanced. This is just because it gives you the most control in your defensive game. You're able to press your opponent when you need to press him, but you're also able to have a bit more of a conservative and relaxed approach when you need to as well, so you've got that balance where you can do a bit of both. Moving on to the defensive width, I'm just using this on 40. This is pretty much the same as it normally is. I kind of like range between like 40 and 45, but I've just lowered the width a little bit more recently because I've noticed like there's been a lot of gaps in between my defensive line, and it's just been too easy for my opponents to go through the middle. So lowering the width to about 40 just covered a few more of those gaps. We are a little bit more exposed on the wings at times, but you know, I think it's worth the sacrifice, if you get what I'm saying. Moving on to the depth, guys, I'm currently using this on 60. Again, this is pretty much the same as it normally would be. I kind of range between having it around 55 to 65. At the moment, I'm kind of just going bang in the middle on 60. This is so we can sometimes win the ball higher up the pitch, and then other times we can sit a little bit deeper. So it is nice and balanced, but at the same time, we can win the ball higher up the pitch too. Moving on to build-up play, guys, as always, I suggest that you have this on balanced. The reason for this is balanced is the most suited for all types of FIFA 23 gameplay. As you guys know, FIFA 23 has very inconsistent gameplay where sometimes it can be fast and responsive, other times it can be very slow, heavy and laggy. So balanced is the most suited for all of these types of gameplays you might experience. Something like fast build-up is good when the gameplay is fast and responsive, but it very rarely is. So balance is definitely the way to go, so you're most suited for all types of gameplay. Now moving on to chance creation, guys, I suggest you use direct passing. This is because it makes your attackers bunch up against the defensive players, meaning you can do very overpowered isolation plays. Your players also move around actively in the box so that you can get that extra passing option to guarantee those goals. Some people don't like direct passing, and that is fine, and if you are one of those people, I would suggest you try something like forward runs. It pushes your team very far into your opponent's half, but the thing that I don't like about forward runs is when you lose the ball, you're very prone to being counter-attacked. So I do prefer direct passing, but you can use forward runs if you want to. Moving on to the attacking width, guys, there's not really much, you know, reason behind having this number as it is, but I have this on 42 at the moment. Anything from like 40 to like, I don't know, 47 I'd say is fine for the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow. So I'm just currently using this on about 42. Again, there's not really much reason there, but basically we want to keep the attack nice and narrow, but at the same time we don't want the width to be like super narrow either, otherwise your players are like sat on top of each other. So 42 is doing the job for me. As for players in box, I just keep this on 6. This is what I use for every formation and different type of tactic that I use, and the reason we have it on 6 is so we can commit some players into the box to create chances, but at the same time we don't overcommit the entire team to the point where we get counter-attacked. As for corners and free kicks, these are both on 1 because I use a corner kick routine which requires both of these to be on 1, and you guys can check that out in the top right hand corner of the screen. Moving on to the players you want to use, guys, in the two striker positions, because this is a two striker formation, you can kind of go for a balance between two strikers where you can have one striker who's a bit more of a clinical finisher and then the other player who is a bit more creative. So I like to do this creative finisher dynamic where I have Di Maria, who's a bit more creative minded, and then Robbie Keane, who is a bit more clinical in front of goal. You guys don't have to do that if you don't want to, but it's just something I would suggest to get the most out of your front two. As for the cam, you're going to want to use a nice technical player. This is somebody that is going to be able to turn. You're going to want somebody with good ball control, good passing ability, the skills if you can get it, the weak foot if you can get it, and the shooting. You need somebody that is very good in that all-round attacking game, because if you use somebody that is not very good in attack, or you use somebody that is super clunky, you're going to find it difficult to create chances, as the cam is the main playmaker in this formation. Now, moving on to the right centre mid, I use a more box-to-box style centre mid. This is somebody that is going to attack and defend. So if you guys want, you can get somebody with like a high work rate, so you get the maximum contribution in attack and defence. But if you can't get that, I just suggest somebody with like nice, well-rounded stats in attack and defence, so you get the most out of them in like both areas of the pitch. Now, moving on to the CDM, guys, I suggest a more defensive-minded player. This is somebody that is going to sit back and break up the play and add defensive support for us. So the medium high work rate is probably the best work rate you can get for this position, and you're just going to want somebody with really good defensive stats. Now, moving on to the left centre mid, I use an actual attacking player here. So I don't actually use a centre mid. I'm currently just using this Chiesa card. I don't want to get rid of Chiesa. He's been in the team for so long now. He kind of just stays. He just doesn't leave. But yeah, you're going to want to use like an actual attacking player in this position, because it will make sense in the player instructions. So use somebody like an Mbappe, and Neymar, and Alawaran, any of those types of players, and you'll be absolutely fine. As for the fullbacks, I kind of like to go for a balance between the two, where I have Roberto Carlos, who's a bit more attacking minded and will commit forward on the attack for us, and then I've got Cafu, who is a little bit more defensively sound but maybe lacks that attacking ability. So I just have that balance between the two fullbacks. You guys can copy that if you want to. As for the centre backs and the goalkeeper, these just need to be as meta as you can get them. There's not much to say about them. Now, for the player instructions, guys, on both strikers, I just have them on stay central. The reason for this is we don't want these players drifting off to the wings. It's important that they stay in those central areas where the strikers should be. If we have them on balance width, sometimes they'll just drift off too far wide, and we don't really want that, because then they're always out of position. So stay central is definitely the best support runs type to have them on, and I suggest also having them on mixed attack, because you get the most out of them when you're going forward. If you put them on getting behind, makes your team very one-dimensional, and it kind of forces you to constantly play through balls, and it makes your attackers feel very disconnected from the rest of the team. So mixed attack really does help for like build-up play and getting the most out of these players. Now, moving on to the cam, guys, I just put him on comeback on defense. This is to make this team defend in a 4-4-2 shape. So in my case, Jairzinho is going to come back to defend as a right midfielder in a 4-4-2. But yeah, that is the only instruction I have on the cam. Now, moving on to the right centre mid, the box-to-box player, we have him on default settings and cover centre. We have him on default settings because we don't really want to restrict this player. We want him to be able to do a bit of everything for the team. The only important thing is that we have him on cover centre, so he does defend as one of the middle centre mids in the 4-4-2 defensive shape. The reason we do the 4-4-2 shape is because it is a much more superior defensive formation than the 4-1-2-1-2, because you can defend those wide areas, which is not possible when you're playing like a narrow formation like this. So it just makes it a bit more defensively solid just by making one little change. Moving on to the CDM, guys, the more defensive minded player, we have him on stay back while attacking, cut passing lanes and cover centre. We have him on cover centre for the same reason as the right centre mid. We want him to defend as one of the centre mids in the 4-4-2. If we have him on cover wing, he'll kind of like drift off wide and it'll mess up the defensive shape. So cover centre is super important. Stay back while attacking means he's not going to go forward, which is good because we don't really want this player going forward. He is defensive minded. And cut passing lanes means he's going to break up the play and help us kickstart more attacks. Now, moving on to the left centre mid, where I use an actual attacker, we have him on get forward, get into the box cross and cover wing. We have him on get forward because he is an attacker, so we do want him to go forward for us. We don't really want him like sitting back. We do want him committing to the attack. We have him on get into the box for cross because as he is like technically a centre mid, if we have him on balance crossing runs, sometimes he'll be a little bit hesitant to enter the penalty area. But if we put him on get into the box for cross, it means he's going to look to get involved as much as possible, which is what we want from an actual attacker. As for the defensive position, we have him on cover wing. This is so he will defend as a left mid in the 4-4-2. So the actual shape for me would be the back four is exactly the same. Chiesa is the left mid, Jorginho is the left centre mid, Pogba is the right centre mid, and Jairzinho is the right mid. And then the two strikers are obviously just the same. Now moving on to the left back, my more attacking minded fullback, I have him on balanced attack and overlap. The reason for this is the 4-1-2-1-2 is obviously a narrow formation, so sometimes we need to add extra width and get a wide option. If you play too narrow with a formation like this, especially against a good player, you're going to just get red all the time and it just makes you very predictable. So putting one fullback on balanced attack and overlap gives you a wide option where you can play wide and narrow at the same time, which is super difficult for your opponent to defend against. For the more defensive minded player, I have him on stay back while attacking and overlap. We have him on stay back, so we always at least have 3 defenders back, and we have him on the overlap run type in case we do trigger a run forward with him. We want him to add extra width to the attack instead of running narrow. As for the centre backs and the goalkeeper, guys, these are just on default settings and I do not touch them. But yeah, guys, they're my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-1-2-1-2. If you guys have enjoyed or found this useful, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up, so that does really help me out with the YouTube search algorithm. Also subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside, guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.